Good. True Health Tuesdays. Okay. Now, tonight we're talking about osteoporosis. It's hard to say a disease doesn't exist, but when you look at it, it's affecting a lot of people. But what is it? Okay. And now when you see, and you've seen people that think that as we age our bones are supposed to get brittle, that's not true. Okay, that's not true. But you see the posture. Now, when you see somebody starting to round over like that, what's causing it? Is that old age? No, it's impossible. Okay, we've got patients in their late 90s, perfect posture, everything else. So what happens is, this right here, when you see someone bent over, rounded over like that, they've either had fractures of the bones. Okay, this is a plastic model of a human spine. This is the front part, a person looking in this direction. If the disc spaces get crushed or closer, so that means that that disc, if it has poor nutrition, if it has an acidic environment, okay, it means it can't get healthy nutrients. So it's going to have less motion. If it has less motion, that hard disc comes down on the nerve. So the nerves come out of the back half. So what happens is a person's going to start to round over their shoulders or round over their rib cage area in order to open up the nerve holes. So when you see somebody like that, it's not a question of, oh, they're old. No, it's a question of dehydration or toxicity. Does that make more sense? Mm-hmm. Okay, so when you see somebody like that, you say that's toxic and deficient. Now, do me a favor, just for the heck of it. Sit up nice and straight. Now, just like that person there, round your shoulders over really, really, really far. Okay, now when you round it over like this, try and take a deep breath. It's hard. I know. It sucks. Okay, now reposition your shoulder. Now take a deep breath. So now, how many people with dehydration and toxicity are misdiagnosed with high blood pressure because not getting enough oxygen, their heart has to work harder? How many people are added with more toxicity in our insane environment that we call health? So this has got to stop. Now, this picture on the top, she's 92 years old. I don't think she's the oldest, but she's one of the older yoga instructors. I can't do a one-arm push-up like that, okay? And I adjust a couple hundred people a day. But when we look at this, we've got to start thinking differently. Okay, bones have two types of cells living on them. Osteoblasts that build, osteoclasts that tear down. And you need that constant remodeling process. It's like, do we have that remodeling process going on every aspect of our body? Yes, we do. In fact, I've got cells on my skin that slough off every 28 days. Sorry. But we have to. If the cells didn't come off, you'd have scales, you'd have plaque, you wouldn't have healthy skin. Same thing. We need that remodeling process in order to have it. Now, what do the bones do? They provide structure, but they're flexible. It's not like the chicken bone or the wishbone that you have in the turkey that snaps. They're incredibly flexible. And they produce their own red blood cells. So it's a phenomenally strong matrix, okay? And it's designed not to just support it, but it produces red blood cells. Now, knowing that the blood is around this, okay, if there's any type of toxicity, it means that the body can't build healthy bones. So toxicity is going to be one of the causes of the bones not being healthy. Now, this, you might say that, and this is the side view of a neck. Some people might say, well, degeneration occurs. That's what osteoporosis is. No, it's not. Okay, degeneration or osteoarthritis is not from thinning of the bones. It's from a dehydration and abnormal mechanics. See, this picture on the left is a normal, healthy side view of the neck. And you can see the bones are basically the same shape. The one on the right, though, are those bones in the neck the same shape, or are they distorted? They're elongated. They're degenerated. The disc space is smaller. Can you see that? Okay, well, what happens, and this is super important, if the disc space gets smaller, okay, is that, so the disc space is a ligament. If the disc space gets smaller, does that joint become more stable or less stable? Less stable, okay? So what happens is the body is going to increase the surface area or make the joints larger okay, that surface area larger in order to stabilize an unstable segment. Does that make sense? So arthritis comes from unhealthy joint nutrients, and that's from either motion, abnormal function, everything else. But we got to start looking at this. So it's arthritis comes from unhealthy movement and unhealthy nutrients that can't get into the disc. Okay, does that make sense? Because this pattern replays itself. Now here's two patients. The one on the left is 95 years old. She just started care with us. She has insomnia. Okay, the one on the right, she's been with me for about 10 years. Okay, she started when she was 71. Now, she started with 11 different fractures. Now, when we look at the spine, there's 7 bones up here called cervical or neck bones. There are 12 bones here called the thoracic, and there's 5 bones called the lumbar. She had 11 fractures. Okay, there's 12 bones. She had 11 fractures. Okay, now did she have healthy blood or toxic blood? Toxic. Toxic blood. She was taking 9 different prescriptions. Okay, it was insane. She came in, bruises everywhere, okay, and rounded over. Why was she rounded over? Because she had fractured bones here, and the body had to round over in order to open up the nerve holes. Okay, does that make sense? So she comes in, we start adjusting her. I'm adjusting over broken bones, not the actual broken bone, but above and below. So we start to work the rib cage in order to help stabilize the unstable segments. Sure enough, with about 6 weeks, her pain went away. But that was 10 years ago. She hasn't had one fracture since. But what do we do, knowing that the bones are supposed to be healthy and supposed to be remodeled? Did we get her off the toxic medications? Absolutely. It was ridiculous. Now she's 81, she's healthy, she's doing a longevity class, she's playing tennis. I mean, she's living a normal life. But this right here, that's not thinning of the bones. It's toxicity or deficiency. Now, so let's go back into history. Since osteoporosis doesn't really exist, okay, the condition does, but the disease doesn't. And I know that sounds kind of like a play on words, but if you look at it, what does osteoporosis look like outside of the body? How much does it weigh? What shape is it? So those are ridiculous questions, because so what you're telling me is osteoporosis is an adaptation to toxicity or deficiency. Does that make more sense? So it's kind of foolish to treat it instead of giving it sufficiency and purity, okay, to find out what the heck the cause is and reverse the cause. That makes more sense. Well, back in 1992, in Rome, the World Health Organization, because doctors couldn't agree on this, they were saying, well, what do you think is thin? What do you think is normal? Okay, so they get a group together, and they say, well, we know that this bone density, there's very, very few fractures. This type of bone density, there's a lot of fractures. This area in the middle, we're not quite sure. You know, we don't see a lot, but, you know. So they knew that what normal is. They kind of knew what fracture risk was. Okay, and so then the middle part, they just said, well, it's penia. It's like thinning of the bones. So it wasn't really a disease. However, okay, and what's interesting is, what do they say? They say that everybody has normal bone density on average, unless you have some type of disease, until 30 years old, and then your bones start to get thinner. Now, why would that be? Okay, well, first off, you need to lay down bone, tear up bone, lay down bone, tear up bone. Okay, and the older you get, the less stomach acid you produce. You need acid in order to absorb calcium and iron. So that means you have less calcium, less minerals to work with. Also, are you more active after 30 or tend to be less sedentary or more sedentary? Yeah, so then again, also women, are you going to have a lot of kids? Yeah, you know, so if you have kids around that era, kids are a parasite, they suck the nutrients out of your body. Well, they suck the cash out of your wallet later. But you know when they're inside the woman, they actually draw on nutrients. So around 30, they've had a couple of kids, maybe a little bit of nutrient deficiency, maybe some stress levels. So what's the health of the average 30-year-old blood? Do they have a healthy diet? Do they have plenty of time for exercise? So we have to start looking at why 30 years old, but they pick 30 years old. So the conference agreed that osteopenia would be a new term only for research, okay, and it's not really a disease, it's just kind of a term. Well, when you get a bone mineral density test, it's not really accurate. Okay, and a lot of people are saying, well, no, my doctor runs it. Well, let's go on this, because they're going to compare two things. They're going to compare a T-score or a Z-score. A Z-score is not really popular, but the U.S. standard, so this means when you go in, if you're 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, or 100 years old, okay, they're going to compare your bones, okay, the World Health Organization, to a 30-year-old Caucasian female. Anybody got a problem with that? Okay, yeah, it's not accurate. Okay, the U.S. wants to compare you with a 30-year-old, but the same sex as you, okay, and the same ethnicity. Okay, because African Americans or Africans typically have thicker bones, Northern Europeans typically have thinner bones, so the thinner bone doesn't mean you're healthy and more able to fracture, it just, that's your genetic makeup. Okay, does that make sense? So it doesn't mean that you're going to have more fractures, it's just that's the thickness of your bone density, just genetically. So now the Z-score, it checks the same age on a normal and the same sex, but this is rare. So this is like if you're taking steroids or you just had radiation for cancer or you have toxic metal exposure, and they're going to check that with some normal. And so that's going to be more accurate, but still, it still doesn't make much sense. Okay. And now, so let's say, okay, 1992, in Rome, the World Health Organization coined the terms, okay, osteopenia, osteoporosis, normal. Okay, now here, this is where the plot thickens, okay? Merck developed Fosamax, which is the first drug, non-steroidal, that was used to treat osteoporosis. Okay, this is going to be a big money maker. Okay, now you got to deal with me, okay, and just set your ethics and morals aside. Okay, this is only for business, because if you can appreciate it's just for business and people's lives aren't really that important, you're going to really see that this was really a brilliant move by them. Now, there's not really a market for this, but they have to develop a market. So they hire a guy, and they make up the Bone Measurement Institute. It turned out to be Jeremy Allen, just a guy working for Merck. It was his desk, and it was a Bone Health Institute. Okay, it's just somebody said, we're going to just create this. And he starts to lobby all of Congress. Now, it's interesting. Here we've got Caleb Alexander, a pharmacoepidemiologist. Okay, he says the best way to make money, not morally, well, one way they profit is to extend the use to as many people as possible to identify mild and milder forms of a disease and call it dangerous. Okay, brilliant. Now, okay, so 1992, the terms are coined. 1995, they developed the Bone Measurement Institute. Okay, now we start, what do you want to do? Lobby Congress. Okay, so we start paying off the politicians, which, because campaigns are expensive, so you give them a ton of money, and you say, pass this Medicare bill. Look, we have the Bone Measurement Institute that's behind us, that entire desk. No, we have the Bone Measurement Institute that's behind us. Okay, so they have that as authority, and they start funneling money. So they got Medicare to pay for it. But now here there's not that many bone densimeters, okay, in America. So what Merck did is they bought the company and they trashed the big ones, and they got these little portable ones, okay, or little smaller ones that would check the wrist and the ankles. They weren't near as accurate, but at least, you know, hey, it's, you know, who cares about this because we bill for it. Okay, so they send these machines out, and imagine if you're a doctor. Hey, look, we just got Medicare to pay for it. You're going to have all these people coming in. They're going to be worried about bone density. Were there a lot of fractures in 1994? Were people breaking hips right and left? Was there a need? No. See that? How brilliant it is? So you've got to market this drug to create fear. I mean, just absolutely devious. Now, in 1994, there were 77,000 cases of osteopenia. Okay, let's flash forward, okay, about 16 years. 34 million. Is that good marketing or what? Okay, it's just incredible. I mean, so when I see that the disease doesn't exist, toxicity or deficiency does. That causes a thinning of the bones. But this is just marketing madness. I mean, it just is absolutely horrific. And so now we look at their drug. Okay, now the drug hasn't been studied longer than 2 years. I just saw the expert, okay, because I try and get the latest information, okay, on every disease. So I look up this osteoporosis discussion that had the top expert at a University of California in San Diego on osteoporosis. And I thought, wow, cool. I'm going to get the latest information. And I'm going, oh my gosh, this gal is totally, she's teaching doctors, but with completely erroneous information. See, tonight what you're going to learn is that sunlight is good for you. Okay, dark green leafy vegetables are really good for you because they have vitamin K and calcium, and it actually helps your bone. You're going to learn that medications are bad for you because it toxifies the blood, and you're going to learn exercise is good for you. I know, this is all radical stuff because this is the opposite of what she was telling me. And I'm listening to this, I'm going, oh my gosh, if I had a brick, I'd break my computer. I can't believe this. These are teaching doctors. She's supposed to be the expert. And then a friend of mine, who's a pharmacist, she said, you know, you're gonna blow a brain cell if you keep getting this upset. You know, she's not stupid. She's not crazy. She's being paid by the pharmaceutical industry in order to promote their product. And she's doing a very good job of that. And I'm going, you're right. Okay. She just is immoral and unethical. Okay. So when you look at this, you get a bone densimeter, okay, and a test that compares your bones to a 30-year-old white female. Okay. Now, how fast do bones change? Anyone in here ever broken a bone? Okay, how many more than one? I can still raise my hand. Okay, how many more than 4? I can still raise my hand now. Okay, well what happens is every time you break a bone, it's kind of cool. It hurts, but within 4 to 6 weeks, it's a brand new bone. I'm sorry, that's not the reaction I'm looking for. You break a bone, that's it. Within 4 to 6 weeks, it's brand new, okay? It's like, so get appreciation for this, for goodness sakes. But what happens is, if you break a bone, you put it in a cast, you let it heal. If you x-ray both arms within 4 to 6 weeks, guess what? The arm you don't use looks thinner. You can see it thinner. So does that mean within 4 to 6 weeks, if you don't use it, the body is going to absorb that calcium? So the more you use the bone, the stronger it gets. Does that make more sense? Okay, good. Good. Now here's the drug that they promoted. Remember, 92 they came up with the term, 95 they invented the drug, 97 they bought Congress, okay, in order to pay for the drugs. Okay, so now here it is. Long-term studies on bisphosphonates actually weaken and impair the ability to heal, leading to fractures according to the study. Now, so here's a drug that causes more fractures, weakens the bones, never been studied longer than 2 years. And I love history, but here's the saying. When diet is wrong, medicine is of no use. When diet is correct, medicine is of no need. Well said. Gosh, I like that. Okay, now, what's stronger, concrete or a bone? Bone stronger. Okay? I'm not kidding. Okay, when I was 9 years old, I was taking a karate class, okay? And they had you set up, and I was never more scared of this in my life. They put 2 wooden boards, and for the belt progression, you had to sit there, focus, breathe, and the hand goes right through the wood. I was so scared because I thought, what if I don't? What if I fail? But it works. So if a bone is stronger than concrete, it's stronger than wood, heck, it can be stronger than steel. Why, when people are taking Fosamax, they say their leg just snapped? You've all heard of people that say, I fell and broke my hip. Well, do you realize that most people's hip breaks first and then they fall? It's not the other way around. Okay, and this is what spontaneous fractures are. Because remember, 4 to 6 weeks of bone is brand new. If you don't use an arm for 4 to 6 weeks or muscle, it becomes thin. So thin you could actually see the difference on x-ray. Okay, so movement and toxicity is going to be vital to this. Now, the drug is still available. Okay, and that expert I was telling you about still recommends it, and she's also recommending like 4 other new drugs. And it's interesting because I'm looking at this and I'm going, God, the Addams family were less sick than this, because they have a new drug that's really good, except it can cause osteosarcomas, which is bone cancer. The other drug's really good, but you got to monitor the kidneys because the kidneys get destroyed after this. This other drug is really good, okay, and it has a totally different process. It's brand new. It's just in experimental stages. We're really excited for this other drug to come out. Okay, now biphosphate, she recommended that you don't want to use longer than 10 years because fractures occur. Okay, I'm sorry, what was the drug prescribed for? I get confused.
Bone health.
Bone health. Okay, so we got a number of choices there. We got kidney damage, which the kidneys actually help with bone health. Okay, and we've got osteosarcoma, and we've got increased fractures. Okay. Women taking Fosamax had 125 times more likely to suffer a femur fracture from falls than women not taking the drug. Okay. Now, you can go on the pharmaceutical industry didn't just buy our government, they bought, pretty much every country on the planet. This is the World Health Organization, and this is the FRAX questionnaire. You can get on here, and it's really kind of nice, because remember, we want to market the drug. All you got to do is answer questions. You don't even need to take a test. Okay. Are you female? Are you over 40? Okay. Do you have an occasional adult beverage? Okay. Do you smoke? Have you ever had kids? Do you know anyone that ever had a fracture, and were they a relative of yours? We can get you on the drugs right away. Wow. I mean, this is insidious. Okay, then this gal is recommending that milk is good for bone growth, okay? And I'm looking at this, and she's saying there's no studies out there that show that dairy are harmful for the bones. And I'm going, wait a second, pasteurized homogenized dairy, homogenized, that causes a systemic inflammation. You cause a systemic inflammatory response, your body's going to secrete cortisol, which is an anti-inflammatory, and that weakens bones. You cause systemic inflammation, you're going to decrease thyroid function, and you're going to increase adrenal fatigue. So just what I know about thyroids, I know that that's ridiculous. So I look it up, and I see multiple studies of the American Journal of Epidemiology, multiple studies of the American Journal of Public Health that say that and the one in the American Public Health, that's 12 years long, almost 80,000 women, they found out that if you took commercial dairy, okay, there's a difference there. But remember, she's part of the pharmaceutical industry and can't recommend raw dairy, that there's an increase in fractures. It's interesting because I was looking this up and I'm thinking, well, wait a second, it's not just calcium. I've never seen anyone calcium deficient in our society, but I've seen a tremendous amount of people with thinning of the bones and fractures and osteoporosis. India, Japan, and Peru have less than a third of the calcium intake with much less bone fractures. So maybe it's not just calcium. Maybe it's not just milk. Maybe there's more minerals in the bone than calcium. Duh. Okay, I mean, all it takes is like first year anatomy. So we have to look at this. Anything, then it goes back to the thyroid, like what we were talking about. Systemic, anything that inflames the body's going to produce cortisol, and cortisol is an anti-inflammatory, and it weakens bone tissue because it slows down the metabolic processes, okay, or changes the metabolic processes from a normal, healthy, thyroid-mediated one. Now it's interesting, too, Because when you're under a long-term stress, or long-term cortisol mediated, or long-term adrenal stress, or long-term adrenal fatigue, I'm saying the same thing 3 or 4 different times. If you have a low-functioning thyroid, you're under adrenal fatigue, you're under stress, and that means your body is being weakened. That means the bones are being weakened. Okay, so now what's tough, I'm going to show you in a minute, the thyroid medication that you're prescribed for a low-functioning thyroid causes what to the bones? Thinning of the bones. How'd you know? Oh my gosh. Oh, if I only had a prize. So now let's look at this. Okay, but let's look at this list a little bit different. Okay, with an awareness that most of these diseases don't exist, but an awareness that the body is adapting to an inflammatory process. So you can go in there and say, yeah, these are the common risk factors, which doesn't make much sense. Over 65, no, that's not really a risk factor. I have tons of patients way over 90 and they're healthy. Broken bone after 50? Absolutely. So they're maybe either too aggressive, maybe they're taking blood pressure medications which have you lose your balance and you fall and hit, or they have acidic, toxic lifestyles. That would make sense, okay? Then smoking, that limits osteoblastic production on the bone, so it does weaken the bones. And you look at this and you think, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But look at the diseases, okay? Hyperthyroidism, chronic lung disease, okay, and inflammatory bowel. Most of these here, vitamin D deficiency, most of these are inflammatory diseases that causes an anti-inflammatory or cortisol to be secreted, and it needs to be reversed. Most of these diseases are correctable. And then you look at the medications. The medications that cause osteoporosis, steroids, okay, and steroids are given for everything from red skin to antihistamines to inflammatory bowel conditions to, I mean, they're just passed out like candy. Cancer treatments, thyroid medications. Wait a second. Thyroid medications cause osteoporosis. Now, let's go back a little bit. First, if you're in a cortisol-mediated metabolic state, if you have an inflammatory condition, your adrenals start cranking out cortisol. And cortisol, if it's up, it slows down the thyroid function. So when they're passed out thyroid medications, it's not for the thyroid, it means that you're in a stress state. Does that make more sense? If you're in a stress state, you're more acidic, your body's not laying down new bone. Oh yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Hormone suppression, immune suppression, antacids, okay, antidepressants, high blood pressure medications. Now it's interesting because, again, I'm going back to the expert that I heard that's teaching medical doctors. She said there's no problem with non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, that pain relievers are fine, they don't affect the bone. Well, that's not true. Here's 2 more studies, okay, that say that non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, and this is everything, I mean virtually every pain reliever out there, at least over the counter, it causes not just liver toxicity, gastrointestinal bleeding, inhibits proteoglycan production, but it's also decreases certain nutrients, decreases folic acid, vitamin C, calcium, and iron. So if you decrease calcium, will that negatively affect the bones? Yes or yes? If you decrease calcium, there's a muscle that uses calcium all the time for contraction. What's that muscle called? Heart. You like the hint? Okay, that was pretty good. Yeah, so you start looking at this, you think, wait a second, how many people take Tylenol? And guess what she was recommending? She was saying that some of these drugs, okay, that they use to strengthen bone, cause pain. In the first, because there's a couple of drugs that you can inject just a couple times a year that cause pain for about a week. She was recommending Tylenol every 2 hours or every 4 hours for about the first week. And I'm going, wait a second, this is really bad. Okay, non-steroidal anti-inflammatories destroy this stuff. So then she also says that antacids, proton pump inhibitors, don't cause osteoporosis. And she was saying, well, you know, we thought there was a couple of studies that show, and then there's a couple of studies that show that it doesn't. So the studies aren't, hey, who does the studies? The guys that make the drugs. Okay, the studies aren't independent research checking real live humans. Okay, it's independent research that's fudging the numbers. It's not accurate. We know that for the last 15 years they've been using active placebos. So here's a number of studies that I found: 2006, 2008, 2009, 2010, 2012, and this just, it didn't take a long time to look this up, but saying that these antacids, because remember, you got a stomach, next to the stomach you got a duodenum, calcium and iron are absorbed in the duodenum. If you're decreasing acid, you decrease absorption of the calcium. Does that make sense? I mean, perhaps, I think if your paycheck depends on you not understanding something, you're not going to be understanding it. So, okay, now fluoride, fluoridated water. And I was trying to look for a pro-fluoride stance, and I found one. Okay, it's amazing, okay, that there's still people that are that ignorant on the planet. But fluoridated water, imagine mass medicating the population without control of the dosage with a toxic substance. I mean, 50 years from now, they're going to say, my gosh, how did you guys let this happen? But this is fluoride, and leading cause of fluoridated water is osteoporosis. So that makes sense. So we got to stop this stuff. And then, if you're not careful, any packaged food that's manufactured in a country that has fluoridated water, so we're talking pineapple, Hansen soda, you know, a lot of canned foods, a lot of this stuff has fluoride in it, so it's going to weaken bone. I've got a tremendous number of martial art patients. I had this 22-year-old kid, a mixed martial artist. He wanted to be a professional in there. He comes in, and they just did an arm bar, which is a very common procedure. Both his arm bones snapped. Okay, and it was by a professional, but it's sparring. Professionals know the limit of how far you're going to turn. And so I said, buddy, you know, that's really tough. It's a spiral fracture. What's your diet like? And I said, do you drink a lot of water? No. I usually have a 6-pack of Coke in the morning. I know. Okay, the Coke is phosphoric acid, acidifies the blood, weakens the bones. So it's nuts. This filter is the most reasonable, cost-effective filter I've ever seen, Dalton USA. We've got the commercial version at the office, but you've got to get the fluoride out of your house. You've got to get it out of your life, okay? No fluoridated toothpaste, no fluoridated water. This is the most if there's a better cost-effective one out there, by gosh, I'd be ordering it. But this one's safe. Now, again, I'm going back to the expert, because remember, this is what your doctor, if you utilize medical care for health, which I don't recommend, okay, medical care is supposed to be for emergencies, but let's say you utilize medical care, this expert was saying that sunblock is good, sunlight is bad, okay, when the opposite is true. Okay, sunblock is toxic. In fact, human animals are unique. We have a layer of fat underneath our skin. If the fat is healthy, when the sunlight comes down, it darkens. Okay, so it's actually really beneficial. If you have unhealthy toxic fats, such as fats high in omega-6, like the majority of Americans, and this is going to be the corn oil, the soy oil, the canola oil, those are toxic fats underneath there that can have a negative response from the sun. However, if you put waterproof sunblock, that can pierce the skin and cause more damage. If you put the regular sunblock, it's just blocking vitamin D and poisonous. So when we look at this, here's some of the foods that have calcium or vitamin D in it. And I just put the list up there for the heck of it, because we only carry vitamin D supplements from October to March, because at our latitude, that's the only time that we're vitamin D deficient. But I check out the difference, okay, between farm-raised salmon and wild-caught salmon. What's their vitamin D levels like? Huge. Okay, we're talking like 600% more. So what I want you to do is absolutely don't support the salmon farming industry, because it's a toxic product. I just thought that was interesting. But you figure in a normal sunlight with arms, okay, and legs exposed, and that's pretty much me every weekend, you can produce 3,000 to 20,000 units a day. And they're recommending 1,000 units a day, which is nuts. What you need is 3,000 units for every 100 pounds of body weight. Okay, and this is going to be without sunlight exposure. We're in the wintertime now, so in the wintertime, 3,000 pounds for every 100 pounds of body weight. That's why we carry vitamin D in 5,000 units, because for a big guy, 10,000 is going to be fine. For a smaller human being, 5,000 is going to be fine. Okay, so it's essential. But what's wild is also green vegetables, okay, and algae, and this has got not just calcium in it, but it's got vitamin K2, and vitamin K2 is phenomenal for generating bone tissue. And I'm looking at this, and there's so many studies out there that talk about how it increases mineral density of bones. And the sources of this are going to be green leafy vegetables, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, and then you look at some of the other ones, the fermented ones. But you can ferment vegetables and make them super nutrient rich with vitamin K or K2 by getting a K2 a promoter. It's like a culture of vitamin K2 because it's actually the bacteria that produce it. So it's really interesting. This is exciting research, and they're even doing certain supplements with this on. And if you boil it down, what causes osteoporosis? Toxic deficient circumstances. Can you fix it with a toxic drug? No, it doesn't make any sense at all. There's no logic behind it because it's not fixing the cause. And the cause is so correctable. I mean, if you break a bone 4 to 6 weeks later, it's brand new. Okay, it's actually better than new. It's stronger than new because the body always lays down extra bone because they figure if you're dumb enough to break it in that spot, you're going to be breaking it again. Okay, so I got some bones in my skull is going to be a lot thicker now. No, it doesn't mean I'm hard-headed. Don't worry. Okay, but when you look at it, okay, the bones are fantastic. So if a broken bone heals in 6 weeks, how long do you think osteoporosis will heal? That's 5-6 weeks. You know, your body will regenerate. Don't worry. Yeah, it's really simple. But look at this. Any therapy that you do, because your body's always breaking down, it's always building up. If you do a therapy that breaks it down faster than you build up, you're going to have disease. If you build up faster than you break down, you're going to have health. So every therapy that any healthcare professional suggests, if it helps your metabolic processes, it's good. If it slows them down, it's not conducive to health. Okay, does that make sense? I know. So fire any doctor that gives you toxic stuff, like a vaccine or a drug. They're obviously ignorant of how physiology works. Okay, I mean, it just doesn't make sense. This stuff is all inflammatory. Okay, it's inflammatory. If you take anything that inflames the tissues, the endothelial lining or the intestinal tract, the body's going to secrete cortisol, the anti-inflammatory. That suppresses thyroid function. That decreases bone function. I know. Can you see the pattern here? I know. It's so clear when you look at it. And this is fantastic. A rebounder. Everybody should have one of these. If not, you can just hang out and just bounce up and down on your toes. Because what's happening? Okay, because remember, in order to build a bone, you have to work it. Okay, so right now I'm falling through the air. I'm going to do this in slow motion. Falling through the air, landing, okay, and then I'm pushing back. So I'm increasing gravity, I'm decreasing gravity. I'm increasing gravity, I'm decreasing gravity. So I'm just bouncing up and down, okay? But by increasing and decreasing the pressure on my joints, the pressure on my bones, I'm causing that osteoblastic and clastic production to be increased. Okay, does that make sense? I'm also moving lymph, so this is really cool. So the rebounders are one of the best exercises to increase bone density. They also have these vibration machines, okay, that you can stand on. Or you can just hang out, you know. People will say, what's wrong with you? Nothing. Just building bone.
Just fly away.
Yeah, I always do this. So this is the solution. Exercise, you know, park this far away from, you know, the store that you can. Detox, this means anything that detracts or toxifies your body. This means virtually every medication. Okay, it means virtually every toxic corporate food. Non-corporate foods mean organic, healthy, normal, natural foods. Sunlight is good. I just answered an email from a gal in Iceland. Okay, who's got osteoporosis, and I said, yeah, you got to get a sun lamp with the high UVB ratio. And her doctor says, oh no, that'll cause skin cancer. And I said, so I sent her a couple of articles that show it doesn't. Okay, you clean the skin, you put coconut oil on afterwards, you have healthy fats, your body's going to actually be beneficial. So it's healthy. Vitamin D, K2. Now, strontium citrate, this is interesting. This is a metal that was discovered back in the early 1800s. And they found, see, most supplements like iron supplements or some calcium supplements or some like selenium and zinc and those, if they're not bound to something your body recognizes as, or if it's not in an organic form, it's just a rock, so your body flushes it out. So they found out, and they're actually prescribing this strontium, not strontium citrate, because this would be unpatentable. Okay, but they're binding strontium to certain salts in Europe, and they're finding it increasing bone density. So we can get strontium citrate supplements here, but of course the FDA hasn't approved it. Okay, why? Because we can't get the Bone Measurement Institute behind us. It's a little sarcasm. I know very little. Okay, no, because it's non-patentable. Okay, so this has to be from us. And then also, I mean, virtually every mineral out there, selenium, zinc, I mean, you need to have it. That's why we recommend the Body Balance. It's got 125 minerals in it. Now, this is interesting because this gal, and I changed the names, but her symptoms are real. She started about 4 or 5 weeks ago. Neck pain for 10 years, 5 different prescriptions, osteoporosis, high blood pressure, pain, reflux. Okay, now pain. Was she given non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, yes or yes? Yes. That causes osteoporosis. High blood pressure meds, osteoporosis. Reflux, the proton pump inhibitors, osteoporosis. Okay, so you start looking at this, no wonder. She should have it. She's taken multiple drugs that cause osteoporosis, and she has it. Should the doctor be surprised? Wow, your bones are not dense. No kidding, I'm causing it. You know, we're giving you 5 different drugs. So what's interesting, you can see that by the changes on her neck, she's had long-term neck problems. And this caused pain. Pain causes what to be secreted by your adrenals? Cortisol. So she was also prescribed a thyroid medications. Okay, so you start looking at this. Chronic pain means her adrenal glands are taxed, so we get her out of the pain. She stopped her medications by now because, you know, her blood pressure is normal. You know, her reflux went away. You know, I mean, just all the normal stuff. The normal stuff that happens here all the time. I always tell people, you know, within 2 to 3 weeks, your blood pressure is going to be normal. You know, your pain's going to start to subside in 4 to 5 weeks. You're going to be fine. Okay, and what's neat is she can now move her neck. She was telling me she was all excited. She doesn't need to turn around like this to look behind her when she's driving. She can actually turn her head now. It sounds like a little thing, but it's really cool. This is, the body's designed to be healthy. Those aren't diseases that she had. Reflux, high blood pressure, osteoporosis, they're not diseases. They're just the body adapted to deficient toxic circumstances. This truly is, now I put this up at the end of every talk, but if you start looking at it, it's like, wow, it really is that simple. You need to have healthy nerve supply. You need to have regular exercise. Is this hard to do? No, it doesn't look weird. Okay, well. Okay, proper nutrition. This means if man makes it, you don't eat it. I mean, it's just, you got to have a healthy, balanced diet, plant-based. That's going to be ideal. Sufficient rest. This means you got to sleep at nighttime. And prayer and meditation. So the attitude of gratitude actually has a detoxing effect. Does that make sense? Now, everybody watching this, okay, and this is YouTube. We've got thousands of people that are subscribed to us now. Everybody, you can get on our website, okay, and you get 7 days for free. You get access to all the PowerPoints. for every patient, okay, in our clinic, you get access to it for free anyway. So, I know. This is cool, huh? Because I talk really fast, and you might not have taken all the notes, so you can get on the website, and we have the handouts here, which I've got natural antibiotics and natural pain relievers on, which since Advil, Tylenol, Motrin, and everything else are toxic and poisonous, wouldn't it be nice to have a little smoothie or something that would do the same effect that would actually help heal you? Okay, so next week we're going to be talking about women's cancers, cause and solution. And I guarantee you that you're not going to see one pink ribbon here. Thank you very much.